Good morning from early morning Brighton. The sun is not long up. It feels like there is air conditioning blowing through a city which is once again welcoming in, whether we like it or not, very, very hot weather. And that's happening for the next couple of weeks. I think up until the date that I start to head towards Durham Fringe on my way to the Edinburgh Fringe. And if you didn't know it, today is World Fringe Day. And it's certainly not my intention to pour cold water on the many fringe festivals that will be sending in their videos and wishing everybody well. And if you want to visit the World Fringe website, you can, to find out more about this celebration that happens every year of the literally hundreds and hundreds, and the number is growing, fringe festivals around the world. And I want to use this day also to remind myself and perhaps you of the origins of that word fringe in the context of fringe theatre and fringe arts. That word has been around a very, very long time. It was there in politics. You'll find at the big political party meetings there are fringe meetings, and sometimes it's the more maverick, the more revolutionary, perhaps the inconvenient to the mainstream people talking about that mainstream, poking at it, challenging it, disrupting it. And that's what fringe is all about, and it's necessary for cultures where the mainstream needs to be poked at, and it normally does. It can become just standardized, it can become elite, it can become complacent. And if you look up the origin story of the Edinburgh Fringe, which is the classic kind of original fringe festival, you'll hear that story of how a few people booked small venues to make that stuff free and more affordable, and to allow a space for people in the rising origin story of alternative comedy, for example. And that was because the mainstream, was a bit elite, or very elitist. It was unaffordable to a lot of people. The festivals were quite arty. Interestingly, here in Brighton, the Brighton Fringe has its origin story of being, I think it was a fringe at one point that was officially part of the festival, and then somebody set up a fringe on the fringe of that because they thought it was too close to here's the word, main festival. And in Edinburgh, the fringe has grown and grown and grown and become bigger than the festival it's there to replace, which continues on with all kinds of work. So the boundaries have been blurred. I would certainly say there was quite a lot of fringe work in the Brighton Festival the last couple of years, and there's always a smattering of it. And now there's a lot of mainstream work in the big fringe festivals such as Brighton, Adelaide, and Edinburgh, and there are many more. Now just behind me you can probably see there, that's the Theatre Royal, and that's been actually quite known in Brighton for putting on some edgy work. But you'll often see mainstream stuff down from the West End, tribute shows, comedians and so on in that venue. But it's become a bit more fringy as well. But essentially there is now a brand called Fringe, a bit like there's a brand called AI, which isn't necessarily the cutting edge of AI at all. It's just a brand that grooms us all to use it, ChatGPT, Claude and so on. And so here on World Fringe Day, you'll find each fringe festival has its own logo. In some cases the logos look a bit like the original Edinburgh Fringe. They are run by boards of directors. They have box offices, they have a measure, and they celebrate. We've now got 500 shows, we're now up to 1,000 shows, and so they become bigger. And certainly at the Edinburgh Fringe there are definitely going to be tickets in the Fringe that are unaffordable to a lot of people. And so what we've got is two things now. We've got fringe festivals using that word fringe, and it's become detached from the original spirit of what fringe is about. Now that's not to say the fringe spirit isn't alive in fringe festivals, but sometimes it's a bit buried, and sometimes it's just simply part of the product rather than the core reason that the fringe is set up. And I've noticed in the UK this year particularly, each town seems to want their own fringe, and a bunch of people get together. They're often part of the big network. They apprentice and learn how the fringe model works. They're all using platforms like Eventatron. There are booking fees, all the things that might seem necessary, and alcohol is often at the heart of it with big fringe hubs. And somewhere on the edge of those festivals, perhaps still listing in them, but perhaps not, are other fringe festivals that try, if they can, to claim some sort of fringe spirit. And there are versions of it, but they're a bit hybrid. You've got free fringe festivals, on the edge of the Fringe. You've got that free Fringe festivals set up last year in Durham, offering free shows as an alternative to paid shows, although I think the Durham Fringe, having been up there a couple of times and made friends with them, seems to be quite of a real fringe spirit fringe, whereas Edinburgh is big business with big sponsors like Virgin sponsoring them and big breweries sponsoring them, and then the main part of the Fringe becomes its hubs with a lot of boozing going on, and that becomes unaffordable. I calculated at Brighton Fringe a couple of years ago, it was about £160 to bring your family and have a bite to eat, a drink, and if you have a drink, get a taxi home, and the cost of the tickets, it can even go over 200. So that's a thing, and that happens, and I think most of the towns, if not all of them, are glad to have the Fringe. The Fringe people work really hard, they're proud of what they do. They then offer training and academies and workshops for Fringe performers. There are contracts that you have to sign about what percentage of the box office is taken, and it is big business. Even small Fringes are often operating on those models. There are one or two Fringes that are claiming to be, no, we're the real Fringe spirit. And in some cases what they've done is it just lists the venues and there is no registration fee, and basically people are free to put on shows during a period of time. That's just trying to awaken up the Fringe spirit, get more people to the theatre and have edgy work. Edinburgh, a small Fringe show can still pay literally, if there's a cast, over £10,000 just to play there. Accommodation costs are high. So World Fringe Day, I think, is a celebration of Fringe festivals, and they are proud of what they do, and you will enjoy the work that you'll go and see there. Often I say it's on the edge of main festivals that can still be big and unaffordable, although they're doing their own work to get funding and able to put on free shows as well to improve, and the word is accessibility. But here I'm still waving a flag that Fringe Review has been waving since 2006. We've got different reviewers, and some go and see that kind of mainstream work that's under the banner of the Fringe, but we review where we can year round, and we're looking for Fringe theatre, and we define Fringe theatre as, edgy new writing, shows that are kind of pushing against the mainstream, the collusion of niceness and mediocrity that can happen sometimes when the mainstream just becomes a comfort zone that no longer really welcomes challenge, or challenges much, because it's more about kind of entertainment that you might find in the West End, you might find in bigger venues. So the charge against mainstream festivals about being elite is being dealt with to some extent by them, and now the charge against the Fringe festivals are becoming a kind of brand and a business model. Ex-Fringe festival trademarked. They're trying to respond to it. They're also discussing it, and I think things like forums of Fringe festivals, and they meet together, has become a bit of a double-edged sword. I think they often just talk about, and they don't mean to, how they can just learn from each other, and the danger is they just clone from each other, and small Fringes simply become apprenticed to the bigger Fringes and start to just try and climb the same ladder and start to look a bit too much like each other. But I think I'm waving the flag for your restlessness, and the idea that when the mainstream becomes middle or upper class, when the mainstream becomes closed off and elitist and cliquey, and society can do that too, that's when you need the revolution. That's when you need reaction, and Fringes should be reactionary. And to be reactionary and change society, they have to make those things accessible, which is why you'll often find them free, put some money in the bucket, or affordable, so that people can afford to come and see that edgy work. And I think we've just got those things still pulling against each other. A kind of very capitalistic model of Fringe festivals are just kind of marketplaces. They're a bit like shopping malls. To the other side of it, which is where Fringe festivals can play host to this, but otherwise Fringe is set up on the edge of even those Fringes. And I think on World Fringe Day, I'm just reminding you to have a think about why the world right now needs Fringe more than ever.